So good morning, everyone. My name is David Fletcher. I'm with the delegation of the Brahma Kumaris World Spiritual University. And this event is co-hosted with rocha International. One more speaker is on their way up, but I think we'll get started. And the title of this event is Holistic Approaches for Raising Awareness and Changing Behavior. And we're hoping to have a discussion not just amongst the panelists, but amongst all of the people who are here today. So if you'd like, please come up to the front, and we're going to encourage other peoples that come in to come up closer to the front as well. We're going to start this morning with a stimulating video from rocha International. So let's start the video.
Most people think of the word conservationist to refer to someone like me. But actually, we need people in all walks of life to care about conservation and to be conservationists.
Ready? I am a conservationist.
I am a conservationist.
I am a conservationist. Oh, yeah.
I am a conservationist.
I tell stories about what's happening to our planet.
I teach theology.
Since 2017, I've given up flying.
I am the Batman, and by that I mean I study bats.
I protect elephants.
I am a pastor committed to building healthy communities.
I spend time with my kids finding bugs. I grow indigenous trees.
We need all of you. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what your expertise is, all of you can be conservationists.
Great, so thank you for rocha and Sarah French for sharing that video. And maybe we should have called this event Everyone Can Be a Conservationist. But the actual title is on raising awareness and changing behavior, particularly from a holistic perspective. And I know we'll have lots of ideas shared from our panelists as we go forward. I'll just briefly introduce some of the framing, the background of how we came to this idea, because I think we often talk about raising awareness and about behavior change. But what's at the root of that? Where does the change start with? And we often talk about the way of changing awareness or changing beliefs and consciousness about something so that we can have real change with individuals in the world is first to change awareness, because that changes our approach. But then by changing our approach, it can change our vision. And changing our vision can lead us to stopping some of the actions that we're doing and beginning new actions in a different way. So often the root of lots of personal change, and we're proposing bigger change, societal change as well, starts at that level of changing awareness, changing consciousness. So that's some of what we want to talk about today, and maybe there's a spiritual pathway, a spiritual element that helps in that changing of values and beliefs and the consciousness that leads to our awareness. So we have a group of panel members up here from different backgrounds. I'll start on my immediate left with Sarah French, who's the Director of International Operations for rocha International, a Christian-based conservation organization that works in 20 different countries. Many of you are probably aware of rocha. Next to her is Juan Vacaz Milling from the Brahma Kumaris. He's one of their NGO representatives to the United Nations and is a naturopath. Next to him is Kevin Lunzalo, who's a marine biologist, but also the co-founder of the Kenyan Youth Biodiversity Network. And next to Kevin is Kusamata Pedersen, who's with the Parliament of the World Religions. She's one of their trustees and a member of the Climate Action Task Force, and is an academic a semi-retired academic, I think she said, in religious studies. We're also expecting Angela Sue Davidson, who's the deputy leader of the Green Party of Canada, to join us. And we hope she will get through security with her traditional drum very shortly and join us up here on the stage. So to begin with, I think I'll turn Sarah to you as co-sponsor of this event from rocha International, and maybe just 3 minutes from each panel member for this first question. And could you just say a little bit, I know there's lots that rocha does, but a little bit about some of the methods that you use to create, rocha uses, to create awareness and behavior change.
Thank you very much. Yes, conservation is a really important, huge topic in the world that we really need, but it really does need behavior change to embed it into action. And in rocha, we do lots of things to do with awareness raising, but I will talk about conservation education or environment education or education for sustainable education. You know, there's all sorts of words for it. And this is really to sort of give people that connection. So we're talking about connecting people with nature, connecting nature and people to inspire action for a sustainable world. And that means that we need to be able to empower and give those tools so people can make a choice. And we're talking about in schools, in communities, in universities, formal and informal education. What we found is that actually being in nature, having that relationship with nature is really important. And as Christians, we have the Bible, but we also have the Book of Nature. We have the two together, and that's it. That inspires us to do the work we do in rocha. So there's so many positive links to being in nature. So you take children in nature. It's brilliant for their mental health and their emotion and their well-being, and you can have a long list of things like that. But also they're getting a relationship. They know the names of the plants, and if you know the name of something, you care for it. That's why we all have names as well. Once you have that relationship, you care for it, and when you care for something, you're going to learn more about it, and you're going to make a difference as you grow older. And for children, our education, we have that in many places, from outdoor camps that we run to in primary schools, actually going into primary schools, to wildlife camps and wildlife extra school activities. And then we also do teacher training as well for teachers, for curriculum, so that they can understand, and once they understand more and have that relationship and that wonder, that's important, having that wonder, it turns to change what they think and their behavior, from plastic-free February, which we run, to different ways of doing things, of not using things, of using older implements of wood rather than plastic, of doing sack gardens, different ways of agriculture, different ways to have that relationship built and change how people think inside, and then that makes that difference in how, in the end, communities work. Thank you. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that, Sarah. And continuing thinking about creating awareness and behavior change, and maybe this whole sense of changing consciousness. Juan, would you like to talk a little bit about the work of the Brahma Kumaris?
Thank you, David. So, one of the beauties of the human being is that we have the capacity to go within and find spiritual technologies, inner technologies that are always available for us in order to use them. And I see biodiversity as the holder of consciousness. All species, trees, animals, insects, fungi, all the elements of the earth, society in itself, it's based on biodiversity. And biodiversity is holding the most sacred of all its components. And this component is consciousness. So what allows consciousness to evolve and continue to transform is through us, through human beings. So in Brahma Kumaris, one of the things that we do is to invite people to learn about themselves, to see themselves differently, to find ways within themselves so they can get empowered, like you were saying, and find these treasures, these technologies that can help us to have different ways of being, different ways of thinking. So when I empower myself, when I get in touch with that within myself, I can find new solutions and new ways of being. So my lifestyle becomes more peaceful, it becomes more simple, and therefore it becomes more aligned with the cycles of nature. So consciousness is what biodiversity is holding, and we have the opportunity to keep expanding our consciousness, and going within is the way to expand our spiritual awareness and therefore have more compassion for the world, for human beings, and the power to cooperate with each other. And I think that's one of the beauties of spirituality, is that we can increase that collectively, and that's one of my wishes here in COP.
Thank you, Juan. We'll turn now to Kevin, who's here from Kenya, one of the founders of the Kenyan Youth Biodiversity Network and a marine biologist. This talk about consciousness, about personal transformation, does it fit with the way you work around awareness raising and around behavior change with young people in Kenya?
Thank you. So I'll start by saying we're living in a world where it's economy over ecology, and the intrinsic spiritual values are quickly being eroded. And this is very pronounced in Africa today. Traditionally and historically, the African continent attributed a lot of spiritual significance to natural resources. There are classic examples of how the traditional African communities interacted with nature. In Kenya, for example, the Kea forests are truly, truly significant to the Mijikenda communities. But then as a youth network, we have less relation or less understanding of the knowledge about that. So what we have been doing as the Kenyan Youth Biodiversity Network is to try and hold intergenerational dialogues where we invite representatives from local communities, indigenous communities, to talk to the younger generation, to pass this knowledge, the spirituality, the understanding, the connection that they have with certain landscapes, with certain species, in Kenya, how they value that, and how then that should be conserved for future generation. And this, in terms of awareness, we use all available media. We use mainly social media. We have our own platforms. We hold in-person events and virtual consultations to try and pass this important information and knowledge, understanding of what these areas mean to people. And one key species I would like to highlight that has a very big spiritual value in Kenya is, for example, the baobab tree. The baobab tree is one of the largest in terms of the size, and also in terms of how it is available along the coastal communities in Kenya. And they place a lot of spiritual connectivity with the baobab. And in the past, when an elder died, for example, they will plant a baobab tree as a way of remembering them. So as a network, we're trying to pass this information to the current generation and ensure that it is valued and it's preserved for future generations. Thank you.
Fascinating, thank you. Let's turn to Kusumita from the Parliament of the World Religions. And Kusumita, can you say a little bit about, from your perspective with the Parliament, awareness change, behavior change? What do you think is the starting point for that to happen?
Well, the Parliament of the World's Religions, as the name indicates, is an interfaith organization. And in 2020, we published a book with the Faith for Earth initiative of UN Environment Program, or UNEP. And research has been going on for a few decades about the way different religious traditions and spiritual paths teach about the human relationship to nature. And it's really been established on the basis of deep research that the religions of humanity agree on a series of points concerning our relationship to nature. And the first thing is, and we can demonstrate this from all the primary sources and secondary sources, that nature has inherent value, intrinsic worth, or dignity. And that there is a continuity of being, a continuity of existence between human beings and the rest of the natural world. And therefore we should respect nature, not destroy, not waste. All of those things we're familiar with in environmental ethics, especially in a gathering like this. But the world's faith traditions also teach that we should experience our continuity, our oneness with nature. And that the spiritual technologies, as it was mentioned by Juan, are available in every tradition. And actually the methods of meditation, prayer, and contemplation are remarkably similar across the world's cultural religious traditions, because after all, a human being is a human being regardless of tradition and culture. And so consciousness is something that's, basic to us all and that we all share. And if a person doesn't even know that they have a within, an inner life, how do we awaken them to that? This is sort of a complex question. How do we awaken motivation, commitment, wonder? And so I have about 30 seconds to how can awakening take place? Catherine Hayhoe is in the U.S. is one of the most effective communicators on climate change that there is, and she says a great number of people, a great majority of people, never talk about it in their families, in their daily lives. So the first thing is say something. Say something. Another thing is, one of the things you can say is, in a tactful way, what I do, and you can do it too. Social scientists have told us that one of the biggest drivers of change is knowing that the person next to me in my family or on my block, my friend, is doing something, and if they could do it, I could also do it. Then we've heard about, the education of children, education of youth and college, university students. I'm very devoted to this as an educator myself. And there is media, press and media, and there's also the arts. And the arts is very important because they have the ability to move us, to move our hearts and go past, intellectual or mental obstacles. And the arts can connect with spirituality in a very powerful way. So the last, okay, I've gone over time, so forgive me, and more later.
Thank you very much. And I think you gave some practical examples for all of us, like others did, around awareness change and how things like motivation, commitment, wonder are part of the driving force for how awareness changes. And that makes a big difference at the personal level, and if people would like to say some more about that, please do so. But how do we take these ideas about personal transformation to a societal level? How does it contribute to change in the world? We work for some big organizations. Anyone, can you give some examples of how the change happens going from the personal maybe to the broader societal level? Kevin, would you like to start?
Sure. At a personal level, I think the connection between an individual and the natural world is the greatest awakening that you can have. For example, I'm an Anglican. I subscribe to the Anglican religion, and I associate myself with the teachings of the Bible that human beings are the custodians of nature. And so as a leader of a youth group, my mandate is to create stewards of nature, to bring them into the circle, to make them aware that we are endowed with all the biodiversity that we have in Kenya, and our role as the generation that will stay longer is to preserve the nature and pass it over to the next generation. Once they have this understanding and they have this relationship with the natural endowment that we have, then they take personal steps and collectively to advocate for their protection. And one of the ways that has been manifested is we've been, prior to the COP15, between COP14, I met with Juan in COP14, between COP14 and COP15, we have held a series of youth consultation meetings. And in those meetings, we discuss a range of things, including the connectivity, the spiritual connectivity that we have with nature. And so we have formulated a youth position paper that we've used to advocate actively for some of the elements that are reflected in the post-2020. And yeah, they are welcome. And so that's one of the ways through which you can start individually and then grow collectively in informing conservation.
Great, Kevin. Thank you very much for that. And I think, I think our other panel member has arrived, and we'll give her a chance to catch her breath. But Angela, Rainbow Eyes, when you're ready, please come up and you can take a seat at the end of the panel, and we'll include you in the discussion then. Welcome. While we're waiting, Juan, would you like to continue and say a little bit? We're here. There's thousands of us gathered here to make collective decisions about a future biodiversity framework. How does personal change help us in making those collective decisions? Can you speak a little bit about that?
I was very touched by the youth yesterday. There was have in this world. I also heard yesterday that we all here, we love nature, or most of us, and we are kind of nature lovers. But they were saying, what if we become citizens of nature citizens, and that changes it shifts the ways we think, and instead of seeing as nature as out there, we are actually Earth in a way. We're the extension of the planet Earth, and I think it's very beautiful to also connect with the spirit of the planet, because we also, if we meditate and we sit and we listen to the planet, Earth is awakening too. Earth is calling to this awakening, is asking us to awaken our spiritual consciousness and perhaps go deeper so we can explore this dimension of peace and dimension of silence, where we can find the solutions and the innovations. And I think quantum physics says is also very well, the possibilities are still there. Quantum physics is very clear. It's not linear. Things can happen in a very holistic way. And I think spirituality gives us the understanding on how that works. And I think collectively, if we start thinking in the things that we want to see into an ecological civilization, we can actually perhaps do awaken everyone and listen to the call of the earth and find these solutions.
Great, Juan. Thank you very much. Awakening through silence. Interesting way to think about the mind shift that needs to happen for us. Sarah, I'm going to ask if you could hold on for a couple minutes for your comments, because we have got two other people that have joined our panel. And just before I introduce them, I'd like to just say very briefly, we've heard a little bit about the book of nature, the importance of care and wonder in awareness raising and behavior change, the importance of compassion, the sacredness of biodiversity, intergenerational dialogue and learning from elders, the use of social media and the arts, the relationship with nature and the dignity and inherent worth of nature. So all kinds of things are floating around in our consciousness right now. And I wonder if I could turn the mic over to Angela Davidson, who's the deputy leader of the Green Party here in Canada, known as Rainbow Eyes. And she's with Shauna Knight from the Duzunukwa, excuse my pronunciation, Society, Wild Women of the Woods. And maybe I'll give the mic to the two of you to share as you see fit for 5 minutes to share your views on how do we raise awareness, change behavior, change consciousness with people around issues of biodiversity.
Gela Kessler. Thank you, Dave. Gela Kessler, Nugo Guixi Salas, Nugo Angela Davidson, Nugo Rainbow Eyes, most recently from the Fairy Creek blockade, where we defended the last of our sacred old growth, and we followed the call of Elder Bill Jones, who asked us to gather to help protect his traditional hunting and fishing territories on the Pachidat and the Dididat First Nations. Everybody that went to Fairy Creek heard the call of the forest. When we went there, we saw new colors that we had never seen before, because we found a new way of living that was outside of the system. It was in the forest. And it was unlike anything we had ever seen before. We were living in the forest, breathing in the soup that the forest creates. Aurora, who is a matriarch who came, and she taught us this. We were living in the forest last summer, working together for nothing but everything. And we had more passion every single day than we had ever had before. And we had found family and each other. And it was through this, through following our hearts and following the synchronicities that were compounded in the forest, because we were following Mother Nature and we were following the call that Creator led us into the position of Deputy Leader, Uma Anis of the Green Party. I got this position because I followed our elders at Fairy Creek. Our elders, Elder Bill Jones of the Pachidat First Nation and Gramalosa from the Kla'amin First Nation. And it is only because I followed them that I met the interim leader, Amita Kuttner. But this is all following the path of Creator and following the wisdoms of our elders. And this is what we learned at Fairy Creek. And this is the approach that we want to spread, that there is more going forward than materialism and growth. It's a reconnection to ourself. And there is no greater school that we can go to than the forest school. So it is the greatest opportunity for learning, for our consciousness and for our spirit, than to go into the forest, and that's what we found. So that's what I'll share for now, and I'll hand it over to my sister Shauna, who was an incredible leader at Fairy Creek and a natural leader. And I'll say this one thing, at Fairy Creek, the natural leaders were the women. That's why we have the Zunaqua Society, the wild woman of the woods. And it just happened naturally because the women have the compassion and the strength. And it just happened. It was beautiful. So Gela Kesla, thank you. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you.
I'm going to use your mic too. I'll just use your mic.
Thank you. I feel really excited to be here too. I'll just quickly add that connection is the most important thing that we're missing, that we're lacking. We've been disconnected. Life is so busy. People are so consumed with consuming, and we've lost touch with what's important to us and what matters because we're so busy. And it's important to get that connection back by being in nature, being outside, being in the forest, being with the people we love, creating respectful relationships with the land we live on, with the people we live with, and understanding that those relationships operate through respect and reciprocity. It's a giving and a taking, and we have to make sure we're giving back as much as we're taking. And a lot of people, I don't think, have really that opportunity because life is so busy, and we've created such a system that we don't have those chances for connection. So I think it's really important to follow your heart and connect deeply with the people and the land that you live on and live with. Thank you.
Thank you, Shauna, and thank you, Rainbow Eyes. And lots of values mentioned there in terms of connection and respect and reciprocity and breathing in the soup of the forest and learning from the forest. So we've heard many different things from different perspectives in terms of changing our awareness, changing our consciousness. Sarah, as one of the co-sponsors of this event, what would you like to add to that?
This is why the arts are so important, as was mentioned in the beginning. In the environmental movement, it's been said over and over again that we will not save